Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. I'm just going to go ahead and pop this into the Discord. Welcome. How's everybody doing today? I'm just going to go ahead and, oh, whoops, pop this in. Hopefully, we're all doing well. Like I said in my last workshop, I'm on my laptop here, so a little bit of a different setup here. I will not be showing my face, so to most of y'all, pleasures. We're gonna get started in a couple minutes here. Hello, Brownie is Python based. It is very Python based. It's incredibly Python based. So, for those of you who are showing up, who are following in, and you want to go ahead and get started, check out the Brownie setup instructions. I didn't finish the hard hat video yet. Do I need it for this workshop? No, you do not need the hard hat setup for this. In fact, most people, a lot of people here will be upset if you try to do hard hat stuff in Brownie. So very different frameworks. They do very different things. So cool. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. Welcome to the Brownie setup, the introduction to Brownie. So, and if you came to the hard hat workshop right before this, a lot of the first 15, 20 minutes of this are going to be the same. So if you want to, go get a coffee break, feel free to go get some coffee or something. Because first we're going to explain basically what is Brownie, what are these smart contract frameworks? Why are we here? Why are we not just doing everything in Remix? Because that's essentially what we're doing here, right? We've done a lot of work, right, with Remix. We've seen Remix. People go, hey, Remix is cool. I get to deploy my contracts. We get to see stuff. We worked with Sol yesterday and Zach, who showed us a little bit of Remix, which is awesome. But now we're saying, hey, Remix is great, but we want more, right? We want to be able to deploy, to be able to test, to do scripts, do everything that we need to do in a professional environment. And Remix might not be the right choice for that. Now, Remix absolutely can be, though, right? You can use Remix for your professional deployment setup. Just most of the biggest projects in the space, they're going to use a more modern framework like Hard Hat, like Brownie, like Foundry. And so we're already getting some really good questions in here saying like, hey, is Hard Hat similar to Brownie? What's the difference between Hard Hat and Brownie? And it's a great question. So in Hard Hat, we saw in Hard Hat, all of our scripting and all of our testing was done in JavaScript. In Brownie, all of our scripting and all of our testing is going to be in Python, right? And so here I'm gonna pass the docs here, Brownie, so that you can kind of go ahead and see Brownie and go ahead and get started with Brownie. And if you want, you can even go to Quick Start, which will show you how to literally get started, and create some projects here. And that's what we're going to be going with. So we're going to be learning how to create one of these professional coding environments for Brownie. And if you look at like DeFi Llama, you can scroll down. There's a lot of protocols that use this Brownie framework for doing pretty much everything. You're Not Finance being a big one. I think Curve as well, right? So if we go to Curve, GitHub, right? Curve is like the largest protocol by total value right now. If we go to their GitHub, we go to Curve contracts, we can see this Brownie config.yaml. which is a file which indicates, oh, this project is using Brownie. So if you're using Brownie, you're using the same framework that this, $20 billion protocol is using, right? So we're learning how to use some of the best tools that some of the largest projects in this space are using. And then you can actually see some Git commits from, from Ben and Edward, who are just absolute Brownie gods. If you ever get the luxury to interact with one of them, that you should be very happy with yourself. So we're going to learn how to use these incredibly powerful tools. Yeah, Brownie is more for Python. Truffle and Hardhat and Brownie are in Remix. All do the same thing with slight variations. So yeah, exactly. If you're like, oh, which one do I pick? Which I don't know what to pick one, stick with it, and just have fun. It doesn't matter. They all do different things, right? Like we said last time, Hardhat is the most popular one at the moment. But here we just saw that right now the number one DeFi protocol is using Brownie. So take your pick. Anyways, let me go ahead and switch screens here. Oh wait, not quite yet. Now, I dropped a link to these setup instructions in the comments here. So feel free to follow along here so that you can be up to speed and get like this setup. And the Brownie docs also have this the setup and a way to kind of install everything to get started. So if you want to follow along here, feel free to do so. The other thing I want to talk about is for Windows users. I highly recommend using WSL. So WSL stands for Windows Subsystem for Linux. Oh, and I didn't even talk about Visual Studio Code. Sorry, hold on. Before I say into that, instead of coding in Remix, we're going to be coding in this thing called Visual Studio Code. So this is what's known as a code editor, and it's a place where we're going to write all of our code. Okay, and it's really phenomenal, but it's different from Visual Studio. So if you look at Visual Studio, it's not this. If you're here, you're wrong. You want Visual Studio Code. They're very different, even though they have nearly identical logos and names, which is really frustrating. Once you get it, you're going to want to follow this developing in WSL if you're a Windows user, only if you're a Windows user. This will give you a setup that allows you to run Linux commands in your Windows environment, which is phenomenal because Linux is like how the world works and how most professional software environments look. So kind of running this with your Visual Studio Code will make it so that all of your commands just kind of work. So I definitely recommend you getting Windows Subsystem for Linux if you're on a Windows machine. Great. All right, so let me bounce over to. Hold on 1 second here. Let me open up my VS Code. Give me 1 second. Figure out how to share my screen. Sorry, 1 second. All right, cool. And so I'm inside of my Visual Studio Code right here. This is pretty much what it looks like. And I'm getting some questions in here. Hey, which one's easier to understand for beginners? I actually do think that Brownie is easier. I think that Python as a programming language is a lot easier to pick up and get started. So if you're a beginner and you're like, hey, like Python or JavaScript, it really, you can pick any of them and be good to go. I think Python's a little bit easier. If you're saying, oh, which one's easier, and I really want to be a full stack developer, then I might say to use Hardhat. But maybe you're like, hey, I don't really care. I just want to learn how to do contracts. Then I would probably be like, yeah, Brownie's probably going to be easier. If you're like, oh, I really want to do contracts and I want to, and I love DeFi and I love, fintech and financial technology, then I would more heavily lean towards Python and Brownie because Python is like what the world does for finance. Oh, and one other thing, one more thing before we get into code. Another framework that we'll probably talk about in the next 6 months to a year is this Ape Works Framework. So the Ape Works team and the Brownie team are really tight. They're good friends. And Ape Works is kind of like this up and coming Python framework. And the API is pretty much exactly the same as Brownie. So everything that you're going to learn here, if you ever want to try out Brownie, if you ever want to try out ApeWorks, they work pretty much exactly the same. And everything that you're going to learn here will pretty much work on ApeWorks as well. So another framework to check out if you're curious. Anyways, now I'll switch. Now I'll switch over to my code. And like I said, I'll be answering questions kind of along the way here. Cool. Personally, which framework do you use the most, Patrick? I've used Brownie the most myself. I love Python. I think Python is a really, really simple language. The past 4 or 5 months, I've been using Hardhat more. And that's just because I've been creating a 20-hour Hardhat tutorial. But I've also been using Foundry for all of my side projects. I've been using Foundry just because it's a newer framework and I'm trying to get the hang of it, get the feel of it. But yeah, right now I would say Brownie is my favorite, but use whatever. Again, do not let that influence your decision. Use whatever you want to do. If it has ape in the name, it must be great. Yes, you are correct. No, ApeWorks is similar to Brownie. It's not similar to Morales. Anyways. Okay, so we're in our Visual Studio Code, and you can open up like this terminal thing at the bottom, right? And this terminal is where we're going to run commands. Okay, by selecting terminal, new terminal. And that's how we can open up, that's how we open this thing up. There's also a keyboard shortcut that I'm going to be using a lot. And we're going to make a new directory by typing in mkdir Brownie, or Brownie hack or something, whatever you want to do. And then we're going to cd into Brownie hack. And something that's really cool about these terminals is if you type in like the start of a folder name and then hit tab, it'll autocomplete, and then you can just kind of go there. Now that we're here, we can type code dot or file open folder, and then we'll open up a new thing. And hold on, I just canceled mine. And it'll open up a new project for us inside of that folder, which is what we want, right? So if we're in here and you click this little file explorer thing and you do touch hi.txt, now you'll see like a hi.txt file over here. I'm going to delete it by right-clicking it, deleting it, like so, move to trash. All right, cool. Great. Now that we have this, we can check to see if we have all the stuff that we need to get started. So we're going to need Python. So if we run python 3 -- help or python -- help, oh goodness, that was, yep, there you go. That's the output there. You'll get like an output that looks like this. So I didn't, I forgot to give you a Python link. Let me give you a link to Python as well, because you will need Python to, go ahead and run this. Somebody just said, why do you ignore my questions? But I scrolled through the entire chat, and that's the first question that you've asked. YouTube might be shadow banning you too if you use profanity and stuff. So if you're like, why isn't he answering my questions? I've been swearing a lot. It's probably because YouTube banned you. Anyways. So we have Python installed, and you'll need Python installed to work with this. You'll also need Pipex installed, and Pipex is one of the trickier things to actually get installed. Pipex is a way to install packages to kind of their own virtual environment. And to install Pipex, you do Python 3 -m pip install --user Pipex. I'm not going to run it because I've already got it installed. And then once it's done, you can run Python 3 -m Pipex ensure path, and basically it'll just add Pipex to your terminal. Then you want to kill the terminal by hitting this trash can. Sorry about the clock in the background. And then open it back up, and you should be able to run pipex -- help and get something like this. And now we have Pipex installed. I highly recommend installing Pipex with, installing Brownie with Pipex and not with pip if you're familiar with Python. Pipex is going to make your life a lot better. ETH Brownie works with very specific versions of Python packages. And so if you use pip and your Python packages are different, your whole world will come shattering down. So highly recommend using Pipex instead. Once you have Pipex, you can do Pipex install Brownie, and then run that, and then that will install Brownie for you. And again, I've said this 100 times. The installations for this are probably the hardest bit. And again, here are some setup instructions for working with Brownie. Installing these is easily the hardest bit. Once you get everything installed, you're like good to go. Like life becomes a lot easier. So if you're struggling a little bit with the installation, ask questions on Stack Exchange Ethereum, ask questions on Stack Overflow, ask questions on the Discord, make issues on the repo. Don't let not being able to install hold you back, because even though we're skimming over it a little bit, it's easily the hardest bit because everyone's coding environment is going to be a little bit different. So don't be discouraged there. All right, cool. Any questions here? Could there be an issue if one member of the team is writing smart contracts with hardware and another with Brownie? Great question. So the smart contracts themselves will stay exactly the same. The tooling will be different, right? So if you're saying like, hey, my tests fail, and somebody doesn't know how to run tests in Brownie, or they don't know how to run tests in Hard Hat, right? That might be confusing. But the smart contracts themselves are going to be exactly the same. How can we integrate Brownie, i.e. Python, in the front end using React? We will be doing full stack tutorials later in this hackathon, so definitely go to those. These smart contracts are written in Solidity or Yule or Viper. So yeah, and so we're not going to be going over Viper here, but Viper is another language that's really cool that Brownie supports. Do we have Conda packages for the same? No. In fact, I don't recommend you work with Conda here if you're working with Conda. So Conda is like a Python like package thing. Don't work with Python. Don't if you work with Conda and you try to like do weird Pipex stuff, everything's going to break. I do not recommend working with Conda with this. Can we get a quick rundown on VENV with Brownie? Good question. So Brownie actually runs in its own virtual environment. So it runs in its own VENV. And instead of like doing, instead of creating a virtual environment like what you would a lot of times with Python stuff, and if this is confusing for people, don't worry about it. All you do is you inject packages into the Brownie package to like add packages. I'm not going to go over that. I'm not going to go over that here. But if you have more questions, if you run into an issue where you want to add a package, if you Google it, an answer will probably come up, or just ask it on Stack Exchange ETH and then tag me or something. What is special about Curve that makes it the most famous? Oh, it just has the highest total value locked, has the most money in it. Do you know any hack to use hard hat console.log and Brownie projects? There's I do some other weird stuff. I usually just omit events. So that's what I usually do. All right, cool. All right, great. So we have Brownie installed. Now what we can do is we can run Brownie in here. And we'll get a little output like this. Boom. This means that we have Brownie installed successfully, and we can actually go ahead and get started here. So what I'm going to do to set up my first Brownie project is I'm going to do Brownie init. And what this is going to do is it's going to set up all kind of the basic boilerplate for your Brownie project. And if you look on the side here, we have all these folders now that come with running Brownie init. And this is kind of like your boilerplate code for working with Brownie. Oh, and I keep forgetting to do this at the beginning of this. Sorry, there's like 15 things I keep forgetting to do. I'm putting a link in the chat as well. This is github.com/smart contract kit/Chainlink mix. That is the full like Chainlink smart contract kit boilerplate for writing Brownie code. For writing a project using Brownie. So if you're looking for like a starting point with kind of like everything laid out for you, that is the repo to use to get started. It's got pretty much everything you need. It's got a really good README for like understanding instructions and stuff. So if you want to learn more about how to like build like a really good project with Brownie, go to that, use that as a template, clone it, fork it, do whatever you want with it, and use that as kind of like your starting point. Cool. But let me switch back now. It's in the chat. So we have all these folders on the side. Now, let me walk you through what each one of these is going to do. Let me zoom in a little bit more. So your build folder, this is going to be where all your compiled code goes. You know how like in Remix you do compile. When you compile stuff on Remix, it kind of like in the background saves all the compilation information. In Brownie, it puts it in this build folder. And if you came to the Hard Hat workshop, it's the same as the artifacts folder. Now it's going to be formatted a little bit differently, but this is basically where all your compiled code goes. Contracts is going to be where all your Solidity code or your Viper code goes. Interfaces are where interfaces for your Solidity and your Viper interfaces go. Reports you can kind of ignore for now. Scripts are where we're going to write all of our deployment scripts and interacting scripts. And then tests are where we're going to write all of our tests. Right now, and then get attributes and get ignore, you can basically ignore for now. They're Git stuff. Now, it starts off as completely blank. So what we can do is we can right-click on contracts, do new file, and we'll create simple storage. So, and great, now we'll have a simple storage thing in here. And if you're working with VS Code, you can grab some extensions to format your Solidity. If you look up Solidity, you can use Juan Blanco's version. You can enable that. There's a couple of other Solidity extensions that you can use to make your code hop. So that you get like this nice coloring when you do stuff. So let's make a real simple Solidity contract here. So we'll do pragma, Solidity 0.8.7, do contract, simple storage. And then in here, in our contract, we're going to just do a uint256 public number. And then we'll just have one variable, one global storage variable number. And then we'll create a function set number, uint256 new number. We'll make this a public function, and we'll say number equals new number. All we're doing in here is we have some number global variable, and we're going to update it with our set function, right? And so we have this really minimalistic smart contract here. What we can do now is we can open up our terminal again. Again, that's terminal, new terminal, if you forget, or you can do the keyboard shortcuts. I highly recommend doing that. And we can compile this now. So we'll run Brownie compile to compile our code here. And we'll see if it works. If our code is bad, it will break here. No version pragma found in contract simple storage.sol. Did I spell pragma wrong? So I spelled solidity wrong. Solidity. There we go. Spelling is important. And if you don't have that version installed, it'll actually go ahead and download it. And what's kind of cool is if you click this is like exactly where the Solidity team puts like their versions of Solidity. which is really cool. So we're downloading that version of Solidity, and this might take you a little bit, right? We get a little ETA over here, 2 minutes and 3 minutes, and it changes whatever. Yeah. So while that's downloading, we'll take some questions here. Thank you for the template. Yes, it's like it's fire. And if you want to update it, like please make issues, make pull requests. It's like my favorite. Like that Chainlink mix is my favorite thing ever. Can you help? Sorry, I'm in the middle of a project. Apologies. If Brownie detects other files, VS scripts won't init. I need to uninstall manually VS scripts. Oh, interesting. You can also do Brownie init space -- force, and that will also create a project. Why aren't you using the latest version of Solidity? Why 0.87 more stable? Really good question. So this is kind of a convention thing, but I usually only use versions of Solidity that like I've seen enough audits on. I follow along with there's an auditor called Trail of Bits, and I really love what their kind of approach to versioning. And one of the things that they do is there's only like certain versions of Solidity that they work with. 0.8.7 is one of them, just because of like it's like considered more stable basically. Yes, I spelled Solidity wrong. Yep, thank you. Thank you all. The purpose of using frameworks rather than Remix is to have a way to run an automated address on a server to interact with the contract, read events, and do stuff. I.e., am I getting it right? No, good question though. So the purpose of using a framework is to make our testing and deployment process programmatic. So in Remix, when you're going around like deploying scripts and running scripts and stuff, you're doing what? You're like manually pressing a ton of buttons, right? And that super sucks. As an engineer, I'm lazy. I do not want to run around and press a whole bunch of buttons. I want to just like have my code do what I tell it to do. And having a framework allows us to basically have our code kind of do exactly that. So it allows us to, sorry, I'm adjusting my seat here. It allows us to move around and just be more programmatic with how we write our code here. Is there a debugger available Solidity with breakpoints, etc.? So Hardhat has like a console.log. Foundry has like a event emitter. For Brownie, I just emit events or I revert. So not really, but you can emit events, and you can kind of like kill your code if you want, or revert your transactions, and that's like a way to do like breakpoints basically. Compiling for EVM version Istanbul, isn't that an older version? Lennon is the last one. Yeah, that's fine. You can I'll show you the Brownie config in a little bit, which will allow you to kind of specify which fork you want to use. Source file requires different compiler version. Is this important? It did compile. It might have downloaded like it's doing here. Wow, this is taking forever, but yeah, that's fine. Maybe I should probably have used a version that I already have downloaded. This is my laptop, so it's version is a little bit different. Any other questions while we're waiting for this to finish downloading? These have been really good questions so far, by the way. Gives me an error. Key error 1. I have the same problem. So a couple people are running. So Blasco, I'm not able to see your full comment because you probably put a whole bunch of code in there. If you Google whatever your issue was, there's a good chance it'll pop up. If not, you can ask on Stack Exchange Ethereum or Stack Overflow. Why use Brownie, not Hardhat? Because Python. Python is awesome. How important is block confirmations? Really good question. Block confirmations are really important. Ethereum and a lot of blockchains have what's called probabilistic finality, which is a really fancy way of saying technically your block is never 100% guaranteed to have happened, which is a really interesting concept. Your transaction is only as guaranteed to have happened as there are additional blocks added on top of where your transaction happened. Really complicated way of saying block confirmations are important. The more, the better. Hard-headed Brownie, would you advise to learn both or stick to one? Stick to one. Absolutely stick to one. Is Remix hardhead based? Yeah, so Remix does have hardhead plugins, which is really nice. I don't know if it's hardhead based, but it definitely has a lot of hardhead plugins. Is there any way to check what NFTs projects are using, like you did with DeFi Llama for Curve and Aave? Yes, you can check their code basically and see if they're using. Most of them will have like an open source repository, and just go to the open source repository and check what they're using. Why is your internet connection so slow? It's because I am at my I'm visiting my family for the weekend, so the family internet connection isn't quite as good as my my internet where I normally work. Sorry. Hi, Patrick. In Brownie, is Ganache the only way to locally deploy contracts, or there's something like Hardhat local under the hood? Yes, you can actually connect Hardhat to Brownie. You could also connect like a Foundry. Actually, no, like a DAppTools testnet, your own Geth node, whatever you want to do. Ganache is just kind of the built-in way to do it. And that was something else I while this is downloading, we can talk about that too. Something else I didn't mention. You, in order to run stuff locally, you will need Node because we are going to install Ganache. And the reason we're going to install Ganache is because, as this person just asked, like, hey, like, what about testing locally? We're going to be testing locally, and Ganache is the JavaScript-based package. Oh, wow, that looks ugly. LOL. Are there any limitations with frameworks while using on WSL? No. WSL is awesome. Everyone on Windows should use WSL. How do I install custom Silk version? Just put Pragma Solidity, whatever version you want in here, and then do Brownie compile. Brownie is smart enough to just grab whatever version that you want. What do you think about Yule and Yule Plus? Don't use it unless you're a total beast. Do you have a recommended Python course besides the 4-hour one? I have a 16-hour one. Solidity, Python, YouTube. If you're looking to learn like everything here, like a huge data dump, like go watch this one. Go watch this video. Hi, Patrick. Where can we find the presentations you have made for this hackathon? They're all going to be up on YouTube. Do you know any new projects we can contribute as beginner? Yeah, all these starter kits. Okay, I think we finally did it. Yay! Woo! It's finally done downloading, and it compiled, and we're happy. Hooray. So now in our build folder, if we go to contracts, we now see like this compiled simple storage.json. We don't see any deployments. We don't see any interfaces, right? This simple storage.json compilation has everything about this being compiled, which is really cool. So awesome. So now that we have this compiled, what we can do is we can write some scripts now. So let's create a new file, and we'll call this deploy.py. And in here, we'll create a deploy script. Do you want to install recommended extensions for Python? No, not yet. You might want to. But here's where we're going to add everything. Now, to run a script in Brownie, you just need a main function. So like we'll do main, then we'll do print hi. Excuse me, whoops. Def main, print hi. Now what you can do to run this script, we'll do Brownie. And then actually, if you want to see like all the commands you can run, you can do Brownie -- help. And so give you like all the commands and stuff. But I can run Brownie Run Scripts, deploy.py. And then what I'm doing here, by the way, is if you start typing like the name of a folder and hit tab, a folder or file, it'll autocomplete. So we can run Brownie Run Scripts, deploy.py. And what it's going to do is, and I forgot to explain spinning up Ganache. It's going to spin up a Ganache. It's going to spin up a local Ganache blockchain for you, like so. And I didn't explain that we had to do that. I'm sorry. So you're going to have to install Ganache CLI as well. So sorry, I did not mention this. You will have to install this package in order to run things locally. Because Brownie doesn't come built in like with its own Pythonic command line blockchain. So we need to use Ganache or we need to use Hardhat or something like that. You can check to see if you have this by running Ganache CLI -- help. And if you have this, means that it works. So to install that, you'll do like yarn add Ganache, or just give me yarn global add Ganache CLI. You run it like that. Or you can run npm install -- global Ganache CLI. So you're going to need Node.js, and then you're going to need to install Ganache CLI in order to work with it. It also works with Hardhat, but there's a couple other steps to do Hardhat. So in any case, and the reason it does that is because when we run our deploy.py script, Brownie will say, okay, cool, you're running a script here. I'm going to spin you up your own blockchain to run this on so that stuff works way faster. And then after your script is done, I'm going to tear it down. So if we want to deploy our simple storage, top of our code here, we're going to say, we're going to import, excuse me. We're going to import our code. So we're going to say from Brownie, import simple storage. And then in our code here, we're going to say, we're going to first get an account. So we're going to say account. We're also going to do it, comma accounts. We're going to say account equals accounts of 0. So Brownie will give us like a ton of fake accounts. So we're saying, okay, great. Let's grab the first account of all those fake accounts Brownie gives us. And then we'll say simple storage contract equals simple storage dot deploy. And in here you put any constructor arguments, but we also need to say who it's from. Say from account. You can do any like override in here. So you can do like message.value. You can do a whole bunch of stuff. And then we could do print simple storage contract dot number. We run this, Brownie Run Scripts deploy.py. We're going to see a whole bunch of stuff. So we're going to spin up our local fake blockchain. We're going to run our script. We're going to do our transaction, which deploys our contract. And then we're going to print out the starting value of number in our simple storage, which number gets initialized to 0 in Solidity, and it prints out 0 for us, like that. Now, if we want to update this number, we can then run simple storage contract dot, what is the function? Set number, and then we'll do like 777 or something again. And once again, we'll say from count, and then we can do print this again. And we'll print this again, get the updated number, and let's run this script now, and let's see what happens. Boom. Okay, so we deployed our contract, we read the starting value, then we sent another transaction to update the number to 777, and then we read the new number and we got 777. And then at the bottom it said terminating local RPC client, which is basically it's saying it then shut off our Ganache blockchain, and now we're back to where we started. So that's how we can deploy our code and interact with our contracts that have been deployed. Let me see, and coming back to the StreamYard, are there any questions with that? Awesome, thanks. Okay, cool. Hearing about Truffle Remix, etc. What about platforms like Gitpod did this in development? Do you recommend anyone? Gitpod, so we have, if you look in the Chainlink mix, there's a button. Oh wait, no, there isn't a button for Gitpod yet. Well, we're adding a button to the Chainlink mix to open a Gitpod. So Gitpod is great because it allows. So for those of you who don't know, Gitpod's like a way to run code in like a cloud environment. Um, if you can't get the installation down, I recommend you going with Gitpod. But with Gitpod, you're going to save all your private keys and stuff on some random local server, and it costs a lot of money. So I would say Gitpod is a last resort. I would not start off with Gitpod. Oh, post it. All right. So somebody's upset. Sorry. Hey, YouTube is shadow banning your questions. I haven't been able to see any of your questions. There's a good chance your questions are inappropriate. So YouTube is banning them. And they just don't. I just will never see them if you ask inappropriate questions. So sorry. Um, yeah, YouTube has like auto mod stuff. Sorry. And thank you all for thank you all for bearing with us here. I'm getting import brownie could not be resolved. Okay. So are you getting that in your when you run it, or are you getting that like in the IntelliSense? Like if you get brownie could not be resolved like in your code editor, like up here, that's okay. So long as you can run your scripts. If it's compiling, you're fine. Yeah, if it's compiling, don't worry about it. Thanks for the help, Paul. What is the significance of the from key value pair in deploying and set number functions? I noticed that there wasn't anything similar to the hardhat demo. Great question. So for Brownie, oh yeah, really good question. Oh, I'm glad you're here. So for Brownie, in hardhat will kind of auto pick you an account basically. You can override it in hardhat, but the process of doing that is a little bit trickier. In Brownie, anytime you send a transaction, anytime a deploy transaction, set number transaction, you just have to tell it who you're deploying, who you're sending that transaction from. And in Brownie, we're saying from account. Brownie gives us a whole bunch of fake accounts, so we're saying great, deploy from one of the fake accounts in Brownie. Hardhat kind of automatically does it. It does it behind the scenes, but switching which account you want to deploy from in Hardhat is a little bit trickier. So that's why. It's just the IntelliSense. Yeah, don't worry about it then. All right, cool. So great. So that's how we actually deploy a contract. Now, if you go to, if you go to the Chainlink mix, okay, the Chainlink mix also has instructions on how to deploy this to like Rinkby, um, to a test net, to mainnet, to whatever, and that's going to be with like an RPC URL. You're going to need to get Alchemy. There's some other steps there that we're not going to go over here because we don't have time. But you can definitely check that out as well. So this is the real basic introduction to Brownie. And as you can see, you could make this deploy script, hundreds of commands long, and it's going to be much faster than pressing hundreds of buttons on Remix. And it's also going to be a lot less work, right? And the other thing you'll want to do is write a lot of tests. We're going to be doing more on testing in the intro to testing section. I think it's tomorrow or in a couple days. And we'll do testing later. So in the interest of time, because I do want to set up for Foundry, I'm going to show you guys the Chainlink mix now and show you kind of what it's all about. So to get this and this is that boilerplate code. Hardhat default set to sign to 0 and you can change it. Yes, yeah, exactly. So now we're going to work with the Chainlink mix. There's a couple of ways to grab it. You can git clone it, or you can do it right with Brownie. You can actually do, I think I have to make a new DR. Make DR repo. Brownie repo. See Brownie repo. But you can do Brownie bake Chainlink, or excuse me, Brownie bake Chainlink, and this will automatically download. Oh, yep. You just put it in like that. It'll automatically download this Chainlink mix. Also, alternatively, do git clone and then paste in that link that I have in the on screen right now. You can also do git clone exactly as we've done before, whatever you want to do. But once we've installed it, we can do cd chainlink, and we'll do code dot to open that up in its own folder. And I'm gonna switch screens 1 second. Cool. And now we have, sorry about the clock. And now we have, yes, thank you. 7:30 a.m. Eastern testing with hard hat, 5 p.m. Eastern testing. Oh, I gotta wake up at 7:30 tomorrow. Okay. Just kidding. I'm excited. You guys are, everyone who's here asking questions, you're all doing it. Like, this is exactly how you can learn the best, is asking questions, showing up to these sessions. So hell yeah, you're all absolutely doing it. But cool. Let's go ahead. Let's go in here. Let me take this off the screen now. So I just git cloned the repo, or excuse me, I Brownie baked the repo, and now we're in here. Now there's a couple of different things in here. Okay, so there's this .github folder, which it's commented out. If you want to do GitHub actions, this is kind of like a template to do so. It can make it hard to git clone. That's why it's all commented out. Build folder is going to be the same. Contract is going to be the same. IMG stands for image, and there's just this adorably cute Chainlink Brownie logo. Interfaces is interfaces. Reports is reports. Scripts is scripts. Tests actually have tests in it. And then there's a couple of files here. Your .env.example is going to be an example of what environment variables to use in a .env file. So if you read the README, because we're not going to have time to kind of go over it thoroughly here, but if you read the README, it'll tell you about these different .env variables you can add to work with, deploying to Rinkeby, deploying to a real testnet, a mainnet, etc. Git attributes you can ignore for now. This Brownie config is one of the more important updates that we didn't go over. So this Brownie config is a configuration for all of our Brownie projects, and it has a whole bunch of stuff. Like, it says the default network that we're going to work with is development, which basically means like Ganache. So anytime we don't specify what chain we want to work with, it'll just always spin up a fake Ganache one. We've also got some special addresses for different networks, like Coven. The link token's on a different address on Coven. It's a different address on Rinkeby. It's a different address on Mainnet, Mumbai, etc. And then at the bottom, we have this wallets thing, which is where we get our private key or our mnemonics for deploying to testnets and for deploying to mainnets. So this is going to be kind of like the configuration file for doing all that stuff. We have a license, open source license. We have a readme.txt, and we have requirements.txt, which is a Python thing. Again, you should be using Pipex, so you shouldn't need to deal with requirements.txt. 7:30 is early, I agree. Well, I get up at 5:30, so hopefully it won't be too bad for me. But once you download this, we can do things like Brownie Test, and this will run our entire test suite locally for us. So I was fiddling a little bit before, so that's why you saw that warning there. But it compiles everything, grabs everything, it spins up our Ganache local blockchain, and then it starts testing all of our contracts on a local blockchain here, right? We see that they've all passed. The ones that skipped are ones meant for an actual testnet, and so that's why they're skipped here. So we have 10 minutes left, and I do want a couple minutes to set up for Foundry here. And this is basically most of what you need to get started here, right? Like that, this Chainlink mix is definitely going to be more complex and a little bit more advanced here. But it's going to give you, it's going to have all the boilerplate, everything you need to get started with a Pythonic, a Brownie based project here, right? Like Curve, like Yearn.finance, and get you started here. And like a lot of people are asking, like, hey, is this better than Hard Hat? Better is definitely the wrong word. They're all just different. They're all different packages. We wouldn't have them in the hackathon if we thought they were bad. They all do different things. I really love Python. I think Python's a great language for people getting started in the space because it's a really simple language and it's synchronous by default, which I really like. So we're gonna do a couple minutes for questions here, and then I'm also gonna go to the bathroom because I've been on for over 2 hours now, and That's what happens when you're on for over 2 hours. So we'll take a couple questions here. Let me pull up. Let me switch screens. Actually, let me go to. Where is? Here it is. Let me switch screens here. All right, cool. We're switching screens here. All right, cool. So while we have a couple minutes, are there any questions with any of this, or really anything? Right? Are there any questions at all? Can Brownie deploy multiple contracts which are interlinked from a single deploy script? Yes. Brownie can do pretty much anything. Can Brownie deploy multiple contracts that are anything? Yeah. You can your deploy script can be as big as possible. If you want your deploy script to deploy 1,000,000 contracts, go for it. Although I wouldn't recommend that because you'd spend a ton of gas. You'd spend a lot of money doing that. Python or JavaScript for blockchain dev? It's up to you. Pick one and have fun. Totally up to you. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. Is there a hashtag to use when we reference this hackathon on Twitter? Good question. No, but you probably just hashtag Chainlink, and that's good. Why is it called Brownie? Because it's a sweet package. You get it? It's a sweet package. You get it? No, I think the inspiration came because truffle was originally like the OG package, and truffle, obviously is like a chocolate thing. So Brownie was like, okay, we'll be a chocolate thing too. We'll be Brownie. So I don't know if there was a reason beyond that. Cupcake was taken. Base Chainlink hackathon. I'm with that. All right, cool. Other people here have my sense of humor. Great. Yeah. Any questions on anything else? And I know this was a real brief dive into Brownie, right? There's a lot of really powerful stuff that Brownie has, which is why it's used by billion-dollar protocols. But yeah, that Chainlink mix really it has kind of everything that you need to write really good tests, really good scripts, and deploy to kind of any network and deploy to anything. And that's definitely like I would play without the mix at first to get started, just so that you can get familiar with all the scripts and all the tooling and everything. And then once you get really good, then you can start using the template. Or once you get good enough, then you can start using the template. Or you can even just start with the template or the Chainlink mix and try to reverse engineer it. Really, whatever you want to do here. Hey, finally working. Great job. Excellent work. Oh, and speaking of the session, if you came here, please fill out our feedback form. It's really helpful for like letting us know what workshops you all liked, what workshops you all didn't like. So I'm going to paste the workshop in here while we're answering questions here. Yeah, please fill this out. And this is the intro to Brownie workshop. Yeah, please let us know, and that way we know to keep doing them or not keep doing them. Okay, off topic, but I feel really comfortable working with Remix. Would that affect my project judgment badly as long as it works? So if you write really good tests and you do everything in Remix, there are a handful of projects that use Remix as their production development environment. And if that's what you want to do, great. I just think you'll have a much better experience moving over to Brownie, to Hardhat, to Foundry. But yeah, it's whatever you want to do, great. I just I think you'll have a much better experience. These tools exist for a reason, right? And I kind of had the same mentality when I first started out. Oh, cool! I'm just going to use Remix for everything, and then you reach a point where you're like, maybe not. If you can set up your environment in a way where you're writing scripts, you're putting in source control on GitHub. Do whatever you want to do. Do whatever feels. It wouldn't affect your project badly. But one of my first questions would be, okay, why are they using Remix? I would definitely look through your code and try to figure out why you're using Remix. But like I said, I have seen a handful of projects that have set it up to be really professional and really good. So, yeah. What is based? Based is kind of like a term which means like true to themselves, and like it's kind of turned into just like a catch-all for like good. And it's like a meme that is used a lot in the community, and I think it's hilarious. Candy Wars. Have Chainlink open positions for junior devs? If they do, or Chainlink Labs. So Chainlink Labs is the company behind Chainlink. Uh, if you go on the careers page, you can find out. Actually, I think you can on Remix has some plugins where you can automate some stuff. Um, and that's why I say with like a caveat. So you can, but it's tricky. What do we need to install for next session? You'll see. I will. That's why I got to jump off actually, because I got to go put that together. Today we are learning about Hardhat, Brownie, Truffle, and Foundry. Can we just stick to one, like Brownie? If you're yes, 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 please do that. Pick one. Don't try to learn all four, or all five. Or there's a ton of frameworks. Pick one framework, and for this hackathon, that should be just the one that you use for this hackathon. Do you use Brownie for optimism and other L2s? Yes. What is better, Brownie or Hardhat, or do you need both? Doesn't matter. Does not matter. Pick one and go. Pick one and go. But yeah, Paul, thank you for all your helpful tips, though. I do appreciate that. All right, cool. But I do have to jump off because I do got to set up for Foundry here. So real last question, and also talking about job opportunities. Is there something to watch out for? I mean, there's jobs happening all over the place. Crypto Jobs List has some. Chainlink Careers has a bunch. Um, the This Week in Ethereum has usually really good jobs list. But great. All right. Well, I hope you all learned something. Please fill out that form. And for those of you who are going to Foundry, I will see you there. Bye all.